because it's just as close to them as it is to those who aren't.
And
also
they claim perfect transparency of revelation.
And also they can't be allowed to forget what they used to say when they were strong enough to get away with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is, this is really true,
right,
in every detail. And if you don't believe it,
we'll kill you.
Yes, yeah. We'll kill you, and it may take some days to kill you, but we will get the job done.
Yes.
No, they wouldn't have the power they have now if they hadn't had the power they had then.
Right. And you know, this, what you just said, Christopher, actually I think strikes terror, strikes anxiety in a lot of religious hearts, because it just hasn't been brought home to them that this move of theirs is just off limits. It's just not, it's not the game. It's not, it doesn't, you can't do that. And they've been taught all their lives that you can do that. This is a legitimate way of conducting a discussion. And here suddenly we're just telling them, I'm sorry, that is not a move in this game. In fact, it is a disqualifying move.
Right.
And
precisely the move you can't be respected for making.
Yeah, yes. Just
adumbrate the move for me a bit, if you would, or for us. Perhaps only for me. Say what you think that move is.
Somebody plays the faith card.
Yes.
They say, look, I am a Christian, and we Christians, we just have to believe this, and that's it. At which point, I guess the polite way of saying it is, well, okay, if that's true, you'll just have to excuse yourself from the discussion because you've declared yourself incompetent to proceed with an open mind. Now, if you really can't defend your view, then sorry, you can't put it forward. We're not going to let you play the faith card. Now, if you want to defend what your holy book says in terms that we can appreciate, fine. But because it says it in the holy book, that just doesn't cut any ice at all. And if you think it does, you're clearly, that is, first of all, that's just arrogant. It is a bullying move, and we're just not going to accept it.
And it's a move that they don't accept when done in the name of another faith.
Exactly.
But now, in which case, could I ask you something, all three of you who are wiser than I on this matter, what do we think of Victor Stenger's book that says that we can now scientifically disprove the existence of God? Do you have a view of this?
Which God? I haven't read the book. Which God?
The God
any kind of...
Either creating one, or supervising one, and certainly an intervening one. I mean, I think that's fairly exhaustive. My view had always been that since we have to live with uncertainty, only those who are certain leave the room before the discussion can become adult. Victor Stenger seems to think now we've got to the stage where we can say with reasonable confidence it's disproved, not as not vindicated or better explanation proposed. But I just thought it'd be an interesting proposition because it matters a lot to me that our opinions are congruent with uncertainty.
Right. Well, I think the weak link...
in other words, with doubt.
Yeah, I was a big fan of his book and actually blurbed it, but I think the weakest link is this foundational claim on the texts, this idea that we know that the Bible is the perfect word of an omniscient deity, because that is an especially weak claim, and it really is the claim. It is really the gold in their epistemological gold standard. I mean, it all rests on that. That if the Bible is not a magic book, Christianity in this case evaporates. If the Quran is not a magic book, Islam evaporates. And when you look at the books and ask yourself, is there the slightest shred of evidence that this is the product of omniscience? Is there a single sentence in here that could not have been uttered by a person for whom a wheelbarrow would have been, emergent technology? You have to say no. I mean, there's not. If the Bible had an account of DNA and electricity and other things that would astonish us, then okay, our jaws drop suitably, and we have to have a sensible conversation about the source of this knowledge.
Dinesh D'Souza makes this claim in his new book. He's going to be, by the way, one of the much more literate and well-read and educated of our antagonists. I'm going to be debating soon. He says that in Genesis, which people used to mock, they said, let there be light, and then only a few staves later you get the sun and the moon and the stars.
Right.
How could that be? Well, that's actually, according to the Big Bang, that would be right.
Yeah, but that's
The Bang
pathetic.
precedes the galaxies.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, believe me, it's pathetic too. But
Right. Well, I try to demonstrate this cast of mind in, I think, a very long endnote in the End of Faith, where I say any text can be read. Well, with the eyes of faith, you can make magical impressions out of any text. So I literally walked into a bookstore, the cookbook aisle of a bookstore, randomly opened a cookbook, found a recipe for wok, I think it was seared shrimp with Ogo relish or something, and then came up with a mystical interpretation of the recipe. And you can do it. I mean, you can connect the dots with any crazy text
well,
and find wisdom in it.
Michael Shermer did it with the Bible code.
Right, I haven't seen that.
The hidden messages in the Bible. Yeah. Very, very good. You can absolutely, write yesterday's headlines from it anytime you like. Yeah.
I have a question for the three of you. Is there any argument for faith, any challenge to your atheism that has given you pause, that has sent you back on your heels, where you felt you didn't have a ready answer, etc.?
I actually can't think of any.
I mean, I think the closest is the idea that the fundamental constants of the universe are too good to be true, and that does seem to me to need some kind of explanation if it's true. I mean, Victor Stenger doesn't think it is true, but many physicists do. I don't think, I mean, it certainly doesn't in any way suggest to me a creative intelligence, because you're still left with the problem of explaining where that came from.
Right.
And a creative intelligence who's sufficiently creative and intelligent enough to fine-tune the constants of the universe to give rise to us has got to be a lot more fine-tuned himself than...
Why create all the other planets in our solar system dead?
Well, that's a separate question.
Yeah, say, well, if it was that good.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
Bishop Montefiore was very good at this, was a former friend of mine, say that you have to marvel at the conditions of life and the knife edge on which they are. So it is a knife edge, yes. Our planet is, a lot of it too hot or too cold.
Right.
Sort of climate. The other planets are
yeah.
completely too hot or too cold to support life. And that's just one solar system, the only one we know about where there is life. Not much of a designer. And of course you can't get out of the infinite regress. But I've not come across a single persuasive argument of that kind. But I wouldn't have expected to, because as I realized when I thought one evening, they never come up with anything new. Well, why would they? Their arguments are very old by definition. And they were all evolved when we knew very, very little about the natural order. The only argument that I find at all attractive, and this is for faith, you asked, as well as for theism, is what I suppose I'd call the apotropaic, when people say all the praise belongs to God for this, he's to be thanked for all this. That is actually a form of modesty. It's a superstitious one. That's why I say apotropaic. But it's avoiding hubris. It's also for that reason, obviously pre-monotheistic. But religion does or can help people to avoid hubris, I think, morally and intellectually, and that might be a...
But that's not an argument that it's true.
Oh, for heaven's sake. No, there are and cannot be any such arguments, I think.
Well, maybe I should broaden this question.
No, wait a minute. I think...
But before you answer, Dan,
I could give you several discoveries which would shape my faith right to the ground.
But let me just broaden the question.
Yeah.
Not only...
Rabbits in the Precambrian.
No.
Not only an argument for the plausibility of religious belief, but an argument that suggests that what we're up to, criticizing faith, is a bad thing.
Oh, that's much easier.
We shouldn't be doing. So let's exclude that.
Yes, by all means.
We shouldn't be doing what we're doing.
That's much easier.
Okay.
It's easier to think of a good reason?
I mean, somebody could come up with an argument that says that the world is a better place and everybody believes a falsehood.
Is there any context, though, in your work or in dialogue with your critics where you feel that argument has given you pause?
Oh, yes. Not so much in Breaking the Spell, but when I was working on my book on free will, Freedom Evolves, I kept running into critics who were basically expressing something very close to a religious view, namely, look, free will is such an important idea. If we gave up the idea of free will, people would lose a sense of responsibility and we would have chaos. And you really don't want look too closely. Just avert your eyes. Do not look too closely at this issue of free will and determinism. And I thought about that explicitly in the environmental impact category. Okay, could I imagine that my irrepressible curiosity could lead me to articulate something, true or false,
That's dangerous,
which would have such devastating effects on the world that I should just shut up and change the subject? Right. And I think that's a good question that we all should ask.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I spent a lot of time thinking hard about that, and I wouldn't have published either of those two books if I hadn't come to the conclusion that it was not only, as it were, environmentally safe to proceed this way, but obligatory. Mm. But I think you should ask that question. I do.
Right.
Before publishing a book, but not before deciding for yourself, do I think that this is true or not? One should never do what some politically motivated, often, critics do, which is to say, this is so politically obnoxious that it cannot be true.
Oh, yeah.
Which is a different
thing entirely.
Yeah.
No.
No, it would be like discovering that you thought that the bell curve on white and black intelligence was a correct interpretation of IQ.
Yes, and you could well suppress publication.
Now I've looked at all this stuff again. I'm absolutely, as you could say, now what am I going to do? Fortunately, these questions don't in fact present themselves in that way.
I'll tell you one place where it's presented itself to me. This I think it was an op-ed in the LA Times, I could be mistaken, but someone argued that the reason why the Muslim population in the U.S. is not radicalized the way it is in Western Europe is largely the result of the fact that we honor faith so much in our discourse that they have not become, the community has not become as insular and as grievance-ridden as
in Western Europe.
Now, I don't know if this is true, but if it were true, that gave me a moment's pause.
That would be of interest. James Wolfenson, later the World Bank, recently the negotiator on Gaza, says that he firmly believes that he had tremendous influence for good with the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas because he was an Orthodox Jew. If so, I think it would be disgusting, I have to say. And he shouldn't have had the job in the first place, because we know one absolute thing for certain about that conflict, which is that it's been made infinitely worse by the monarchy. If it were only a national and territorial dispute, it would have been solved by now. So, but his self-satisfaction in saying so, even if it were true, would turn me even more against him.
There are two issues converge here. One is the question, what do we want to accomplish? What do we reasonably think we can accomplish? And then this article of faith that I think circulates, unfortunately, among people of our viewpoint, that you can't argue anyone out of their beliefs. I mean, well, is this a completely fatuous exercise, or can we actually win a war of ideas with people? And I think, certainly judging from my email, we can. I mean, I'm constantly getting email from people who have lost their faith and in effect been argued out of it. And the straw that broke that camel's back was either one of our books or some other process of reasoning or incompatibility of what they knew to be true and what they were told by their faith, that I think we have to just highlight the fact that it's possible for people to be shown the contradictions and internal to their faith, or the contradiction between their faith and what we've come to know to be true about the universe, and they just, the process can take minutes or months or years, but they have to renounce their superstition in the face of what they now know to be true.
I was having an argument with a very sophisticated biologist who's a brilliant expositor of evolution, and he still believes in God. And I said, how can you, what's this all about? And he said, I accept all your rational arguments, however, it's faith. And then he said this very significant phrase to me, there's a reason that it's called faith. He said it very decisively, very almost aggressively. There's a reason that it's called faith. And that was to him the absolute knockdown clincher. You can't argue with it because it's faith. And he said it proudly and defiantly, rather than in any sort of
Yeah.
apologetic way.
And you